Great. So the pilot that we're starting off in Johnston, the first area that we're focusing in on is around digital champions. As you know, digital champions need specific skills in order to support people, and for organisations to be able to deliver that training and get people skilled up can be quite onerous. So what we're looking at doing is we're working with libraries, and they're going to work with us to create a digital champion network so that digital champions can get support and training right across Renfrewshire. Libraries are going to recruit a digital champion coordinator, and their role will be to try and encourage people to come forward from across different organisations and access digital champion training. So it might be that you might have a volunteer that works, for example, say within active communities and you're a befriender. You might not necessarily think that you need to be trained up as a digital champion, but you might, when you're working with somebody, realise that they actually need digital inclusion support, and you might not feel that you're skilled up in that area. Well, this is one way that you can get skilled up. You can access this training through the digital champion coordinator. They'll also be providing basic digital skills training as well, just to build up people's confidence in that area. And the other thing that they will be doing is setting up a network that will meet up across the year, so that you've got that peer support and organisations can learn and lean on each other. There might be one organisation that has more digital champions than others, and they might look to another organisation to say, how did you recruit? How are you supporting people? And just learning from each other. So the vision is that we have an army of digital champions across Renfrewshire. So it's really exciting. We're looking to recruit hopefully in the next few months. So watch this space, especially if you're working with any current digital champions just now. We're also going to create a digital champion focus group to try and get some feedback and insight from people that are actually doing that role right now. So that's working with, you'll see Claire here from STVO if you want to give a wave, and Jason from STVO. And so working alongside them, which has been brilliant. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is device recycling, which is a bit of why we've added this in to Digiren today, is to look at how do we maintain our devices, but also how do we make best use of devices that people no longer are using. So we've set up a small working group that's going to look at that, but it'd be great to hear from Remade today and also from Roz a bit later on that as well, and hear your thoughts. And then the third area that we're focusing in on is signposting. So it's who you're going to call if you need support in digital inclusion. How do you access that support, and where do you go? And we'll set up another group to look at trying to solve that problem. I think that's the same across lots of different themes like mental health. I know RAMH, like the One Ren site, for example. So looking at what other people have done and how they've solved that so far. So that's the Citizen Voice update, and just two more things I just wanted to update you on is that Carol Peters is here. I think I can see you from Renfrewshire Council. She's the cyber security architect, and I'm working with Carol to try and promote online safety ambassador training. So you'll have seen emails going out about that, and that's about maybe getting one person in your organisation trained up to be an online safety ambassador for your organisation, and that might mean that it might mean they deliver training. It might just mean that they did that point of contact to deliver that one-to-one support and advice, or it might just be that they're sending out information through email. So it can be as small or as big a role as you want to make it. But this course that you go on is delivered by Get Safe Online, and after it they will give you you get a certificate, you get assessed, you get a certificate, and then you become a certified Get Safe Online safety ambassador. That's a that's a tongue twister.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Diane, is that there's no technical knowledge needed here. The most technical you need to be is that you shop online and you can use email. That really is all you need. And we, as well as this, you can do the things that Diane was saying, but it may just be that the job that you do, that it'll be useful to you, because it'll allow you to learn how to spot the signs that somebody may have become a victim of some kind of online crime, and it may be that they're just being scammed very regularly, or that they're at risk because they've fallen into bad habits through a lot of the like the online games that you can play. Not all of them are safe. There is also online gambling, of course, all these kind of things. So it gives you an understanding of recognising that there's more to online crime and fraud activity than just the obvious things of like phishing attacks and stuff that people automatically think of. So it's I think a really valuable and really good interesting course that covers so many things, gives you access to so much information that will help you then take that into the community that you're working within, that the community that we quite often don't reach when we're doing normal council sort of cyber security advice and guidance and such like. And what was the other thing I was going to say was it also gives you access to things like videos and such like. So it's not just the boring things, it's practical things, videos that you can go out and 5-minute videos. Some of them are a bit longer, some of them a bit shorter, just lots of different options, ways, opportunities and such like. So it's something that myself and Diane are really, really passionate about, certainly. This has nothing to do with the council as such. The council do pay for it, but it's free for you, it's free for the community, it's free for charity organisations, even for businesses, local businesses. So it's free for your end of it. The council are just supporting the introduction of Get Safe Online so that we can deliver that to the community across the community.
Great, thanks, Carol. And I think another thing that's maybe that we have done as well, we've been delivering training within schools, and part of that's been just delivering online safety training sessions to parents and to teachers, so not the ambassador part. And that's something else, I think, Carol, that Get Safe Online can offer as well, isn't it? If there was a...
It is. We can take it to that level with a parent. We did a parents' evening 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was well attended. It was a virtual evening. It was well attended, and the feedback that we have from it is extremely positive as well. And we'd like to do more of that, because we think that is a really good way of reaching out into the community, especially with sort of young people, where I think there's a lot of parents aren't sure about how to protect their children against all the different forums of how they can get online these days.
Can we maybe just take a question? This from Pamela.
Hi there. Hi, Carol. Hi, everyone. It's really interesting what you're saying. We work with people with a learning disability, adults with learning disability and autism, and they're very vulnerable online.
Yeah.
And obviously we have digital champions, 2 digital champions within each of our services. So we're helping people get online. We did lots of digital groups during COVID, which was really good for people, because we got to see people, we got to engage with them, and we couldn't see them face to face anymore. But obviously that opens up the whole world of being safe online.
Yeah.
So that would be really interesting. Would you say your videos and your advice are accessible for people with a learning disability, or more geared towards staff? So you would think
this is not a staff thing at all, and this is a message that we're trying to get across, actually, is that we don't, although we're sort of targeting staff just now, but I don't mean that in that way. It's just easier for us to reach out to staff at the minute. This is Get Safe Online do make their material accessible for learning disabilities, any kind of disabilities, but for older people, I mean, they make it very age appropriate and ability appropriate as well. So there's lots of ways, and that's why I was stressing the fact that they do it in lots of ways. They'll do face-to-face if you think that people will respond to that better. But they have all these other tools there. The videos are really actually very good, because they condense what can be an hour-long presentation into 5 minutes and get all the same information over in such a really visible way, because they're using the visible cues in that respect. So we have actually got non-council people who have now become online safety ambassadors, but we do sort of we try to get more council staff. We actually, RenSafe Online actually started out 4 years ago after Jamie. She worked in adult protection. Jamie, what was her last name again?
Oh, I can't remember now.
Can't remember now. Sorry, she left. She left last year, but she had come to me and asked if I would come to an adult protection conference.
Yeah.
That was in Johnston Town Hall, and she came to me and said, I'd quite like you to come along and do a session, and from that I then said, look, I can do a lot more than just come along and do a session. If somebody would sponsor it. Went to Patrick, and the head of service, and said to him, and me and him have worked previously together, and Get Safe Online was something that I'd introduced into the previous council that we worked at, and so he knew about it. He knew the value of it and supported it, and just went, yeah, that's fine, we'll pay for it. And ever since then, and especially once me and Diane got together, we've been able to do so much more. So not only your staff, but your NHS side colleagues are welcome, and any other colleagues that you think of, if you've got volunteers, anything like that, anybody is right.
And I'll be in contact, Carol.
We can gather up some information and links as always. I know we've shared stuff about this before, but I would obviously ask Ross and Diane maybe we'll reshare that with the rest of the attendees. But thanks, Carol and Pamela.
Thank you.
Diane, have you got a final point?
Thank you. Just one final thing, and just to say, there'll be more online safety ambassador training planned, so we'll send that out through the Digiren network, Pamela. So as long as you're on that circulation list, if you're not, let us know. And we'll get you onto that, and you can keep an eye out for future training.
I'm assuming it's a point in that. We'll make this the last point in this issue so we can move on. But Fiona?
I was just going to ask Diane if she could pass the information on, because we obviously have a CPD rolling programme for our staff in community learning and development. Claire's team is in adult and family as well as youth services. We used to have COPS ambassadors within our team, where we would be looking at child safeguarding. So I think this would be a nice addition, and some of our young leaders might be interested, Carol, in becoming those champions for online.
That would be amazing.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Diane?
Right, thank you. That's me. I'll just pass you back to Alan. So thanks for listening. If you get any questions after this, you can contact me through email as well. Thanks.
That's great. And then obviously with a fair bit of debate there about the online safety, just to note in terms of charitable organisations, from my end of things, Oscar have put out a lot of guidance around obviously humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. Oscar being the Office of Charity Regulator, and one of the areas that they're asking people to be absolutely hyper vigilant on within their own charities is of course cyber resilience, because there's a heightened awareness around the potential of cyber attacks at this present time. So I think Carol's offer couldn't be more pertinent. Carol?
Yeah, is everybody aware that Sam H has been compromised? They have suffered a ransomware attack last week. So and that's just an prime example of what you've just said, Alan.
No, absolutely. We promoted that very attack as being the reason for getting as much as you can in terms of safety around your charity, but not just charity, individuals and people who are obviously most at risk, as well as we've been discussing there, and making sure we can get them this kind of information. But really, really valuable training, and then obviously if Carol will get that information shared to all the membership. Okay, thank you very much, folks. And thanks, Diane. We're going to move on to Neil. Neil, I was introducing you as if you were coming with a compadre, but you're on your own, I assume. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm afraid it's just me this morning. Sophie, who's the founder and CEO of Remade, is off on a well-deserved break, so I'm afraid you've just got me.
That's absolutely fine. We'll leave it to you, Saf, to give us your presentation. Many thanks, and thanks for the time today.
Oh, no bother. But I know I did a brief introduction. I should probably explain that my day job is working for Glasgow Life. It's the arm's length organisation of the council that run all the sports centres, museums, art galleries, community centres, libraries, community learning, youth work, etc. And in my day job, I run a range of poverty-related projects and digital inclusion, digital skills for employability projects in various forms. It was interesting, the chat there about volunteering. We've got what we call our digital volunteers DigiPals, which I've never liked that name. Anyway, increasingly these days we are working more and more closely with the Health and Social Care Partnership in Glasgow about getting digital volunteers as the kind of hand holder for people with type 2 diabetes, using online resources, the attend anywhere type resources, that kind of thing. And we've actually got some funding from the HSCP to expand that. So that was interesting chat there. But I'm here today in my my capacity as chair of Remade. Now I've got a wee presentation for you, but taking my cue from Alan, I'll whip through it quickly if I can just go and find it amongst my many open windows here. Give me just a second. There it is. Can you all see that okay? Well, there we go. Yeah. So Remade, I won't do the presentation by karaoke. Yeah, I'm presuming you can all read and see it okay. It is a community-led social enterprise campaigning for a repair and reuse economy. I think it's important to say that whilst probably about 80% of Remade's business is recycling IT equipment, the Remade have the contract from Glasgow City Council to recycle all the old office IT equipment, desktops, laptops, etc., which is an important part of the income streams. We fix phones, laptops, etc. You can bring stuff in, we'll fix it for you. We also do tech drops. There's a map of our various locations in Glasgow. We've just moved to a big new warehouse in Maryhill, which has been very important in terms of getting the volume through. What we repair, as I say, there you go. There's tech, small household electrical items, but also textiles, and this is a growing part of what Remade do. I know we're talking about digital inclusion today, but again, this is an income stream for Remade. The Remade do lots of workshops on repairing, reusing clothes, textiles, how to darn stuff, etc. And as I say, those workshops are an important income stream. I think, and I'm going to be quite honest here, one of the reasons that I get involved with Remade, obviously, most of my work is around digital inclusion in one way or another. I'm old enough to have seen various good projects come and go over the years, and often that's because they are dependent on grant funding, and when in one way or another that grant funding dries up, often really good projects can disappear. The reason I got involved with Remade and ended up as the chair of the board is that I could see that Remade had a viable business plan, that they had income streams, that they're doing the digital inclusion part, they're doing the charity part, but importantly they're operating as a social economy business, that they have the income streams there to make sure that they're still going to be there in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. And I think that's a really important part of what Remade do. The digital inclusion side, as I say, on the IT side of things, I suppose the simplified business plan is that we use donated IT equipment. Obviously the council is a big part of that, but through the tech drops of people just coming in and putting laptops and other bits and pieces in a bin in libraries, community centres, etc. So they are refurbished. We sell some of those in bulk online via eBay. We sell some through our shops. We're just about to take on a new shop in the Merchant City as well, and we use the profits from that to keep going. But also as part of that, and you can see there, for the 500 computers that were sponsored by the Scottish Government, Glasgow Council for Voluntary Services, SCVO, etc. They are they're the ones that we recycle and then distribute through various partner organisations to the people that need it. An interesting part of that is if you give people the choice between a laptop and a desktop, everybody chooses the laptop, and we've got hundreds of desktops. The plus side, like sometimes folk take a wee bit of convincing, but that way, if you've got kids in the house and there's a laptop and one drink gets spilled in the keyboard, that's the end of the laptop. However, if it's a PC, it takes up a bit more space. But if that drink gets spilled in the keyboard, it's only a couple of quid for a new keyboard. Sorry, there's the tech drop, but that has been interestingly successful, and we're branching out into audio equipment now. Basically, if it fits in the bin, we'll take it. And to be honest, we expected a fair amount of rubbish there. I would say about 40% of what goes into the tech drops isn't recyclable or reusable, so we actually safely dispose of that and take components that can be recycled out of it. But we've been amazed at the amount of pretty decent phones, laptops, printers, as I say, speakers, old hi-fi amplifiers that still have a kind of a commercial side to them that as I say, we can juice up and resell. So that, in a very quick way, is what Remade does. And as I say, I was making that as brief as possible.
Neil, that was brief, but it was excellent, and there'll be questions, I'm sure, and obviously I'm going to introduce Rose in a second. But if I could just kick off with a quick question,
sure.
Is that can you bring bins to Renfrewshire?
We could do that. There's a kind of, we probably have to look at the costs there. What we do is a van run round the city.
Sure.
So, and some tech drops are busier than others. Like there's a couple of library locations that pretty much the bin's full every week. Incidentally, that big green bin it looks as much more aesthetically pleasing than that big green plastic bin. It's got nice signage and it's wooden and all that sort of stuff. So as I say, there's a cost bit there, but yeah, we could definitely talk about that.
I've got a question from Ross.
Hiya. Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. You're saying people are quite discerning about what they put in the bin now, actually, for recycling. I wonder if that's people's view of what they would consider to be usable now. Because in our own situations, whenever we reused old equipment for people, my dividing line tends to be, if I don't find a device that would be worth using, I'm not going to give it to somebody else, basically. So it's good to hear that people are doing that.
Yeah. It's interesting with the tech drops. They seem to they take a wee bit of time to kind of build up a head of steam, if you know what I mean. They often start quite quiet, and I think it's a word of mouth thing of folk telling each other as much as anything else. Yeah, usually they take a couple of months to get to the level that is then maintained, if you know what I mean. And you get utterly bizarre ones as well. There was somebody trying to donate an old, an enormous old cathode ray tube TV one day, and the folk were having to say, if it doesn't fit in the bin, we can't take it. But they phoned Remade, who then, gave advice on how best to dispose of that. Yeah. So you do get some odd ones as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Just follow on that. The last point really is just, I know again, you're saying with the PCs, the big desktop PCs, we used to, again, this would be about 10 years ago, cannibalize parts to make devices better to be usable, but now everything's sealed. It's all kind of, it's not user changeable in that sense.
Yeah, it's that modular stuff that, it makes it that bit more difficult. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks.
I've got a question from Carol.
I think what you're doing is really, really good, I must admit, and I'd love to see it down here in North Ayrshire, but that's probably a wee bit too far for you to travel, I should imagine. The one question I do have, and it just comes from my profession, let's be honest, is obviously, especially the new devices which are sealed in their solid state drives, do you give people any sort of advice on how to wipe their device before they hand it in, so that they're not bringing their digital life along to the bin along with the device?
No, but the straight answer is no. But what we do is our guarantee to you that any device with a hard drive will be safely wiped by us, safely and securely wiped by us, and that's a big part of what we do with the council is certificating the safe wiping of all machines, and we have to certificate. So if somebody drops something off to us, you know, informally through a tech drop, and are worried about that, the staff at the tech drop know to say that. And also there's an offer, which I'm going to say I don't think it's ever actually been taken up, that if you leave your contact details, we will get back to you just to confirm that device has been safely wiped.
Okay, thanks.
There's a fair amount of trust been taken on there, but I suppose the fact that the authority are giving you this kind of license to do this under that kind of responsibility is one sort of touchstone for local people who feel as if, you know, they're going to be protected that way. But no, Carol's point's right. I mean, I think even internally here, we've always used a system of getting it deleted before we pass it on. I was just wondering from a perspective of, you know, well, on a personal level, if you find any nice Valve hi-fi amps, give us a shout, will you? And then if it's 1972-ish would be great. But genuinely, in terms of how we use equipment as a charity, we tend to, when it becomes obsolete for us, it might still have a use for other charities, and we'd put a list up and say, if you want this, come and get it. And that's worked really well over the past. But there is obviously equipment that just gets to a position where, you know, the bin would be great. You know, and again, because we're neighbours, it would be nice to have that kind of chat. And if there's no other questions directly for Neil at this point, I'll maybe bring Ros in, because Ros has got obviously a responsibility for Renfrewshire. And Ros, I imagine you're watching this and thinking maybe there's a possibility here, yes?
I'm watching this and thinking this is amazing. Definitely. I'm Ros Smith. I'm the Climate Emergency Lead Officer for Renfrewshire Council. So I'm still saying I'm fairly new at the end of September, so I don't know if that means I'm new or not, but I'm sticking with it for just now. And basically, I'd caveat it with I'm definitely not a digital expert, so I'm here listening and learning from everybody, and thanks for having me along. As a kind of 1 minute kind of whistle stop of what I'm doing just now, obviously my main role is to write the plan for net zero, so that's not just for Renfrewshire Council, it's for Renfrewshire Council area as a whole, and we're committed to net zero by 2030, so it's a pretty tough target. We've been doing a lot of engagement so far, including a bit of a focus on underrepresented groups, like traditional underrepresented groups, to try and ensure that all the voices are heard in the design and delivery of the plan for net zero, and that nobody's left behind. And kind of, I suppose, where it all fits in, particularly with what I've been hearing today from Digiren, we've got 5 broad themes that we're looking at. So we've got clean energy, sustainable transport, and then we've got circular economy, which fits perfectly with everything that we've heard today. Also looking at connected communities, so it's about empowering communities, advancing equality of opportunity, just transition and social justice at the core of what we do, and also resilient places, which includes sustainable jobs and green jobs, which again all ties in with everything. So basically, just if I can do anything, if I can help in any way, great to get case studies, if we can link in and anything at all, I can put my email address in the chat as well, and really look forward to working with you all going forward, hopefully.
Thanks, Ros. A great introduction. In terms of what Neil was showing as that kind of hardware, kind of recycling type effort, I assume that kind of role does fall into that kind of broader, as you said, circular economy and just basically carbon footprint sort of aspect, you know. And it'd be worthwhile maybe us having a kind of conversation before I reach out to Neil, because I think there is something here, you know. Obviously Neil's part of a bigger arrangement in Glasgow, but just because we're on the periphery, even if we could think about it from a point of view of, you know, the library site maybe doing it once a month or something, maybe focused on getting people's equipment and then getting it to Neil, something like that could maybe work for us, I think, you know. Sorry, Neil, I'm just battering here and setting out a contract, you know, without much thought. That's all right.
Well, I should say, but probably in terms of remade, it's been you know, Remade's only 2 years old. It's grown incredibly quickly from, you know, Sophie kicking it off 2 years ago. We've now got 15 staff, and we just got the Community Renewal Fund, you know, the Westminster one, 550,000 for a 6-month training programme where we're training 20 young trainees in repair, reuse, in IT, and putting them through accredited qualifications with Kelvin College. Part of the target there is they, just those 20 trainees, will refurbish 1,000 units themselves. But as I say, it's grown very quickly. You know, there's a couple of things, and it's a big part of my job with Remade, of the board needs strengthened. We need more different specialisms in the board. But I've got the role of the grumpy old man that complains about money all the time. And it's the kind of commercial side of it, you know, I'm the one that wanders into the shop in Victoria Road and says, are we selling laptops here? Because there's not a laptop in the window. Why is there not a laptop? You know, that sort of thing. So as I say, it's a period of extraordinary growth. We've got this CRF project that we're delivering over the next 6 months. And I think, to be honest, I think it'll be the summer before we're ready to expand beyond Glasgow. But in the meantime, there's a lot of learning that we can pass on. And Alan, just on the hi-fi thing, I should declare a local interest. I grew up in Foxbar, and my first job when I left school was working for McLaughlin's TV and Hi-Fi in Old Snedden Street. So there you go. My first job was selling hi-fis.
You'll have a box of old valves somewhere for replacements for a tranny I've got in the house, you know. A transistor radio, folks, you know what I mean? So I'll give you a shout. Fiona.
Sorry, I'm snorting.
It's your shout.
Yeah, I was really interested. We've already tied in with Ros with our little COP26 champions, but we've had some of our youth voice groups have held recycling days or reusable days, and kind of raising the awareness that maybe don't chuck your clothes in the bin, that kind of cheap fashion angle. And I think if there's some, well, what I'm saying is maybe not right now because we've got a lot on our plate, but I think come the summer there might be an opportunity be in the summer and beyond to look at how we can extend people's money or lives of things that they buy, or having swap shops, you know, the old style, bring along outfits and take away a new one to yourself, but it's about stopping the landfill. So some of these kind of topics have come up, so I'd be interested to see how we can maybe challenge some of the attitudes of some young people who buy to throw away, and there are a section of young people who are willing to kind of campaign on that or hold unusual events, and it might help with families as well. You know, that we used to have toy libraries or toy swaps and stuff like that, so we could maybe look at subsequent events or actions later on in the year. Can't do it right now because we're too busy, but it's a nice ambition to have.
I think I mentioned I've honestly been really surprised about how popular those the textile repair workshops have been, and it's been very much, well, I say younger people because I'm old, kind of 20 to 35-year-olds that come along to it. That's 95% of the business there, so that's been really refreshing to see.
Excellent. Obviously, Fiona, and there might be a kind of crossover into kind of Rosie's thinking there as well in terms of involving young people and some of the voice within the strategy that's emerging for net zero for Renfrewshire. Rosie, I assume you'll maybe want to assimilate some information from young people about how their perspective is. So that's maybe a wee chat that you guys can consider offline. If nobody's got any other questions for Neil, I was just going to thank him. And Neil, if you want to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, we should, we'll probably another, I would have thought 35 minutes, 40 minutes or something like that, really. But if you need to get away, that's fine as well. But we'd be glad to your company. Don't feel you need to rush away. But I think on behalf of us all, I'd like to say thanks for attending. Right?
Thank you. Thank you for having.
Is that okay? Thank you.
Yep.
And I'll be in touch about amps and everything else. But I'm going to hand over to Ross. Ross is going to take us through a wee bit about hybrid working. And I think obviously it's something that's challenged us all. There's no doubt about that. But in reality, I suppose we are now got a situation where when we talk about hybrid, my question to Ross was, well, what do we really mean? Because it's a mixture. Hybrid's meant to be the mixture. How do we get that right rather than just at home or in office? So I'm going to hand over to him because he knows this stuff better than me. We're also going to have a wee Mentimeter as well, which is always a challenge, but I'm sure he'll do it wonderfully well. Okay, Ross, sorry.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'll just get this presentation up while I'm speaking. So I'm going to go for a PowerPoint live here, so forgive me if this doesn't work first time. Okay, it's just telling me it's loading. Can anyone see it yet? Is it popped up?
Yep. Yeah, it's here, Russ.
Yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to stick to my notes here to try and keep to time. I do realise I was going to do this at a sort of whistle-stop level, but this is now breakneck speed. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Ross McNichol. I work as a digital participation officer for Renfrewshire Council, which is just involved in increasing digital skills in the area and trying to support sort of digital methods. Today I have this different hat on, which is looking at hybrid working. This is something we've all done in the past 2 years in some form, and it is relevant to what's happening in a lot of organisations now. Previously, it was a bit of a reaction to what was happening in the pandemic, but now they're really looking at writing up the ways the policies are for working moving into the future. So for some, this is going to be a bit of a stepping stone towards going back to the normal workplace. And for other people, this might be a permanent change to their working life. So we're just going to take you on a wee tour of what hybrid working is. Get you thinking about your own working setup. So you might find that these slides are just a mirror to what you're already experiencing. And it might be some of the changes you need to happen. I did see in the chat, actually, there's quite a few people that work as a manager level. So again, you might be involved in putting forward some of these changes. And we're hoping to get out of this some ideas to formulate how we run our meetings with you. So if anyone's got any kind of views or thoughts about hybrid working as I go through this, feel free to pop them into the chat and we'll have a check at them later, just at the end. So looking at what hybrid working is, put simply, it is a split between working remotely, which is usually your home, and in the workplace. So there is a few different terms that people use interchangeably for this. You might have heard terms like the flexible working, agile working, and again, we're onto hybrid working. They are used interchangeably online, but they actually are all different things. So I would certainly maybe do a bit of reading before you start using them too much. And again, when the people have asked in the workplace what people would prefer to work at, what sort of level, it was found that Scottish employees wanted to work roughly 2.8 days. And I think that worked out about people would prefer 3 days at home roughly and 2 days in the office. And actually, looking at one of the Scottish Government feedbacks, they found that from asking 6,000 staff what they'd prefer, 24% of people wanted to work exclusively at home, so about a quarter. The majority, 72%, wanted a hybrid working pattern, so they wanted a bit of a mix. And it was a bit much lower for working exclusively on site. Just 4% of staff actually wanted to return to that, so it's certainly the minority. And there's obviously benefits to hybrid working, so you've seen some of this yourself. People sometimes feel there's a better work-life balance. So they did find on average people got about 100 minutes extra a day, and that's usually taking away the travel to and from work. Hasn't affected everyone equally. Increased work flexibility, so being able to choose when and where you do different types of work, and also reduce travel costs. And for organisations, there's benefits as well. You can recruit staff from a wider area, higher productivity. It was found about a 3% increase over the last year in productivity in staff that were hybrid working, so there's small increases and reductions in costs for physical structures. So a lot of organisations are looking at actually just renting out space when they need it as well. But there is challenges to this. So again, this might be things people have experienced as well over the last couple of years. So not everyone can work hybrid. So, you know, there's issues with internet access in some areas. Don't always have the practical home space for it. Something I found myself last year as well. Other sort of caring requirements in the house can be a massive distraction when you're trying to work. And also probably the most hot topic now, which is energy costs for people. So although for the organisation it might be a reduction in cost, everyone's looking at increased costs in their own homes now. And there's lots of other things. You can obviously read these yourself as well. There's lots of other challenges that are involved. Probably one of the biggest ones here involved with our hybrid meetings that we're going to be speaking about is the creation of a two-tiered work system. So the difference between people that are actually there and people that are maybe calling in from home, is it going to create a bit of a disparity there? So it's really just down to finding the right balance. So moving forward, any kind of things we put in place, we need to make sure that everyone's being treated equally in that. We need to have clear definitions of what the policies for that is. So this is more for the organisational side of things. Understanding what works for each place. So again, management sides have been accused in the past in organisations of looking at what works for the organisation and not the workplace. And also trying to plan long term. So particularly when we're looking at our hybrid meetings, we're going to want to put in a plan that we're going to be using over the next few years, at least with everyone, so that we know where we stand for that. Yeah, and again, as Alan said, when you're running hybrid meetings, I suppose the holy grail of that is to have something like a video conferencing equipment or software in place already where you're able to use this. And again, it can cost quite a lot of money for some of the really fancy setups. These are the ones that, you know, you're able to see everyone in the room quite clearly and hear them regardless of where they are. And I know, again, it depends which room you're in. So for a lot of charities, that might be a cost that they can't meet currently. There's lots of other costs happening now. And I don't know from everyone else's own experiences of hybrid meetings. Again, you've probably been to them before the pandemic as well. There's been times people have had to connect via the internet to sort of stream. For myself, we've had impromptu meetings set up in offices where everyone's had their own device. It's been a bit of a mess at times. People have had their mics on, they forgot to switch them off when they've been too near people. So it can be a bit of a struggle trying to get it working properly. And again, that comes back to digital training. I tend to find people that have a knowledge of digital working can set these meetings up a lot quicker. So, you know, there's a lot of sort of considerations for how we would do that. So what I'm going to do is take you to a Mentimeter here. So we've got a Menti set up here. It's going to ask you four questions, pretty much, which one you would prefer out of these. So we're going to look at whether or not you would prefer, say with Digiren, having meetings online only, whether you would prefer them online only and occasionally with a hybrid meeting. So that is where some people would be in the room and some people would be calling in. Always hybrid meetings, so there's always an option to attend, or in-person only. So that's the one that I would assume most people would not go for. So I've got one responsive area, so people are starting to fill these in. So
is everybody, sorry, Ross, everybody quite comfortable that they're able to log on to menti.com just to take part? Any concerns? Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, just give people a bit of time for that, yeah. Like I say, everyone will have their own sort of experiences of how these are, and looking at the kind of feedback and research for this kind of stuff, a lot of the findings from it were when staff were involved, their experience of it, they had a more positive experience when they were either all online only or all there in person. They found that the hybrid meetings would sometimes create this kind of two-part system where actually they wouldn't be getting as good an experience as the people in the room, and vice versa. So interesting finding there. But hybrid meetings are obviously a thing that are going to increase over time. So it's something that we're going to have to try and overcome those sort of negative drawbacks of it, I suppose. And again, it really does just come down to the sort of planning that's involved with it, what sort of equipment you've got in the room, what sort of guidelines you want to follow with that, to make sure that everyone feels included. So I'm just going to check. Yep, there we go. Got a few responses now. Got 8 responses now. So I'm just going to stop this presentation sharing now if everyone's managed to log in on that. So I'll just switch this back to normal.
Just for anyone that's not used this before, it's just typing in that code in the chat there and then using the code that Ross was giving you there just to access the Mentimeter. But any problems, just put in the chat if you need any support, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've never used it before, don't worry.
You go. You should see in front of you as well, this is some of the results that have came in. So actually there's an even split now between the room for online only and hybrid meetings, interestingly. I actually thought there would have been more for online only with that. That's quite interesting. I wonder if anyone's got any kind of comments of that in the chat box about why they've maybe chose hybrid meetings versus online only.
What is well, there's no majority, right? I suppose the majority is online only and hybrid. So people, I suppose what we're arguing here is that the majority feel there's a benefit to retaining some of the learning and experience and approach that's really been developed over the last 2 years. I'll declare right now, I am the person that voted fully in person because that's my preferred, approach. But I totally understand all the kind of valuable potential of the hybrid. It's what you've been describing, Ross. It's getting it right. My concern is that hybrid meetings can end up being better for those in the room or vice versa, I suppose. And I just always have a concern that, those who are at home or only logging in virtually will be less engaged in the actual activity. But and it's getting that right, as you say, that will be the real challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if anybody else has got any comments. Fiona.
Yeah, I think there's benefits of being in person. I really enjoy having those conversations or having the kind of, instead of going into breakout rooms, I always find that really clunky online. And I think if you do have, Bernadette mentioned something to show, I think sometimes kicking off ideas and having something a wee bit more in depth, perhaps that would be better in person. Although I do find the benefit of making better time management for certain meetings where you're kind of able to join people online instead of having the hassle of parking and traveling to a meeting that might only last maybe an hour. So I think if it's a longer meeting, more in person, make use of that as a practical, think tank coming up with practical outcomes. But if it's just a business, it's more suitable for online. I prefer that flexibility. Always like a cup of tea and a biscuit though, Alan. You always.
We usually get good biscuits in when you're coming down, Fiona. There is a couple of comments coming in, but before I maybe go to them, I was wondering if I could maybe draw on Claire and Jason's indulgence for a moment, because for me, if there's anybody who's been working this ticket longer than 2 years, it's SCVO. So, what is your thoughts now in terms of this question, Claire, Jason? How do we get it right? And I think the point that was made by Ross in relation to the affordability is a major problem. We're trying to get it right, and we had figures that were way out of whack with what we've actually had to spend. So, in a good way, actually, we've done it quite affordably, I think, but that's because we've got some good advice. So, Claire, Jason, any thoughts?
We definitely haven't got it right yet. I don't think. We're still working out the kinks. So, for example, I'm based down in Dumfries and Galloway, so I'm almost on the border, so quite far away from the offices, and some of our internal policies haven't quite caught up with that. So there's still issues around travel expenses and what I can and can't claim for because I'm not in the central belt. So we're not absolutely ahead of the game, but what we are starting to recognise with everyone that we work with is that people are kind of sick of online meetings. So I take what you were saying before, Alan, in terms of that's your preferred way of working. And I think we're probably quite used to doing the online meetings, and it works for us in terms of flexibility. but it can be difficult, I think, when you're in a meeting that's 2 hours plus sometimes, and you have to keep your attention on the screen and try not to stare out the window at what's happening in the neighbour's house, which I do quite a lot. So I think we're still trying to not necessarily struggle through, because I think we found quite a good way to work, and it does work for our team. But I would be interested to know if anyone has actually found the kind of the secret formula for success here, because there's plus and minuses for each side.
Claire.
I was just going to say, I basically agree with everything Jason says as usual. Diane's like, yep, everything, they're always in agreement. What I would say is, I can't remember who it was in SCVO, it might have been Maddie, can't remember. There's a question around having people in the room and people on the screen. What we've found is people tend to hate that. So that's maybe the only kind of, I probably wouldn't enjoy that myself, because like for me, I'm not in the Central Belt, so to nip over to Paisley to attend an in-person meeting for Digiren's, 6.5 a dozen to me really. But I think people find when there's people in the room and there's people on a screen, it just doesn't work. It kind of feels like the people in the room are in like a wee special club. And it's quite difficult as well sometimes with feedback and when people are talking, because even we find, so Jason and I recently had a meeting where 2 of our team were in a room and Jason and I were the ones on the screen. And it was quite odd, because obviously when you're sitting face to face, you make facial expressions, and it's just like, it's a totally different vibe to being online. So I think there's maybe the potential for people to feel excluded if it's hybrid. And I believe one of our colleagues, who's a bit of an accessibility expert, had concerns about it for a reason as well, which I can't recall, but I will ask her. So that would probably be my concern if there was people in the room and on the screen. I've got to admit, I think that's. And
that was the first concern that came up actually for us about how you choose who's in the room and not. I mean, obviously it would have just had to have been first come first serve. You couldn't, but again, that may not work for everyone. If there was something specific you needed, like for instance, if Bernadette did want to show something specific, so it's not great. But I did realise, and I just wanted to jump in and apologise. Actually, I have missed one of the options there. Just been realising you were speaking about that. The option of online only plus in-person only should have been an option on that, because that's exactly what you're saying. You'd maybe like to see an option where some of them are in person, but actually some of them are online only. So
maybe make an additional suggestion just to complicate things further. I wonder if what would work would be keep Digiren online, like this format where we have an agenda and different speakers. But if there was, say, a specific thing, so let's just use Bernadette as the example, sorry, Bernadette, and there was something specific, could we maybe have like an additional, let's call it like a workshop? And if people wanted to come in person, and like just as a trial, obviously, and if it turns out that people don't like it and nobody comes, then we know it doesn't work. But maybe have an additional option. So like if you want to learn more specifically around X subject, or this person is going to speak, and we could maybe record it and then we could make it on like a private YouTube channel or something, so that if you weren't able to come in person, you could watch it. Don't know. Purely off the top of my head suggestion.
I think that sounds. Bernadette said that's not a problem for her. She could do that. But then Bernadette would say that. The chat here, and sorry to jump across you, Ross, if you get any sort of final points in this bit, and I'll let you do that. But the chat here, I think, is telling us what we all probably in our hearts know, that there's a sort of personal thing that you miss by being in the room with people, and there's a tonality and an experience and all these other things. But and again, without going on for too long about this, the cat's out the bag, isn't it? We're kind of stuck with what we've got, and there needs to be a real consideration of the true benefits of that, and I do absolutely recognise the thing about the flexibility and the cutting down in carbon and travel. And Ros, I'm sure you're concerned about that. You'll be saying, well, why do you need to drive from here to Edinburgh if you can just do it online? That I get that, but I think it's getting it right for everybody. And the accessibility one's interesting, Claire, because we've had feedback from the Disability Access Panel who are completely we're recording this, I nearly said the wrong thing, who are completely annoyed about the situation that, you know, we keep just doing these kind of digital things. They want to get a sense that they can actually come into rooms and start to experience that. Whereas if you think of it logically, think, well, disability access, oh, we'll just let everybody do it online then. That's no making it accessible. That's just giving one person a, you know, a way in, but maybe isn't the way they would want to choose. So I think it's getting it right that will be the difficult thing. Sorry, Ross, do you get any final points on this before we move on?
I think, yeah, we could talk about all those points for a lot longer, can we really? I know it's hard trying to wrap all that up, but I mean, I just hope it's made people maybe have a think about what the current situation is and what their preferences are, because I expect we'll all be getting asked quite a lot over the next few months about what kind of ways we want to work and what does work for us. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, but certainly it's given us more than enough to help plan ahead with Digiren.
Thanks, Ross.
Fiona's got her hand up, guys.
No, I see Fiona there. Thanks, Claire. Fiona.
Yeah, it's something that Claire and I have been not struggling with, but certainly as part of the community learning and development strategy and the consultation conversations that we had with all the services and third sector was how do we build back after the lockdown and the kind of disconnection from people and community. And I think this for you know, for workforce, for staff, it's the same, you know, about taking care of yourself, but also that connection with our service users. And I think the opportunity to go and visit some projects, like coming down to Engage, is really important, or going to another community-based project, I think is really important, because it's about seeing the physical spaces where people occupy, and I just think it's really nice. It's been neighbourly as well. So I think a bit of a mixture and a good approach would be good. But it's one of the priorities about how, just seen the chat as well. That's really good. I think the balance of economy, the best way of working. But I think Claire's comment about we're human, we're social, you know, and it'd be nice to kind of get back to having some kind of sense of connecting with people and colleagues and having a laugh. Aye.
Aye. And Jason's comment about seeing what my house looks like, I don't know, mate. You know, it's, you know, that's why I have the bloody background the whole time, just to avoid the socks on radiator scenario, you know. Okay, I think that was really useful, and to be honest with you, it's something I'm struggling with. I'm sure everybody else is, getting that kind of mix right, particularly for supporting staff and supporting clients, and the flexibility we're afforded by online. We can't just abandon that either. So appreciate Ross bringing it up, you know, and I suppose what we've got here is a sense of everybody feeling they're comfortable enough with online, but we would like to see what else we can do. I take Claire Sharp's point about that, you know, that idea of, do you have an additional thing that if people want to buy into that too, then maybe there's a choice to be made, and that's up to folk to decide to do that. But we don't want to get into this exclusive club mentality either. You know, if you're in the room, you're in the room, you're in the gang sort of number, and everybody else is just the folk on the screens. That worries me. Okay. We've not solved it, but at least we've chatted about it. So we'll move on if that's all right. And we're going to come on to Claire, James, and I don't know if Fiona's going to chip in, but Claire, I'll let you and Fiona decide how you want to work this. But see a bit about the digital refresh around adult learning in Renfrewshire. Thanks.
Hi there, everyone. It's nice to see you all, even if it's on a screen, because I do like, I will hold my hands up. I do miss person-to-person interactions. I work with the adult and family learning team here at CLAD, and Fee is my counterpart over in youth services, and we'll give you a very quick whistle-stop tour of what we are doing with our digital refresh. And we will do it as soon as I can work out how to press the buttons. So I'm going to share PowerPoint slowly. Right, so we are the Adult and Family Learning Services and Youth Services, and we have been doing some changes around our services here. I work with Adult and Family Learning. I've been there for about 15 years now. And we are, some of you may know us already from our learning centres across Renfrewshire. We've got 6 of them at the minute. And in the olden days, in the before times, we had quite crowded learning spaces. We had big banks of desktop PCs. and there would be about 12 to 15 of them squashed in one room. So our learners were all elbow to elbow, and it was quite tight for space. It wasn't a particularly conducive learning environment. Our desktop PCs were the lovely big black ones with the, I think somebody mentioned the old cathode ray tube tellies. We had them sitting on them for a long time. We were delighted when we got the flat screen monitors in. We thought we were so high tech. And our classes, we would do community-based adult learning classes, and we based them quite a lot around the Microsoft packages. So people were learning how to type letters and print them out, and how to do a spreadsheet and that kind of thing, as well as some kind of very basic internet skills, and some housekeeping, how to defrag your PC. Don't know what it means either. However, then there was lockdown. And what lockdown gave us was some time to reflect on what it was we actually do with our learners. We were unable to deliver our IT classes because the people that we work with regards to IT tend to be people who either don't have devices, or they don't have the skills to actually get online and do the kind of online learning things yet. We take them to that stage. So what we did instead was we were able to support learners through the Connecting Scotland project. We had digital champions on the team. We did garden visits and phone calls to support people. Really, what it does is it gave us a breathing space. Also gave us a much clearer understanding of our learners' digital needs. People came to us before saying that they wanted to learn how to book holidays and look for bargains on eBay. And then all of a sudden, everybody's life went digital. And everything from contacting your GP, phoning the social work, being in touch with the housing officers, your family's Zoom quiz weekly over lockdown, everything went online. And there also, it kind of highlighted some of the barriers that some of our learners have as well. Things like not having those devices, the cost of data, people not having the skills or the confidence to use the machines. Lots of concerns that people had, things around, particularly around with families, around bullying, grooming, gaming. I was going to say Minecraft, but that's me showing my age. All these online games that kids were getting totally immersed in, and adults not 100% sure what was going on. I think Carol had mentioned it earlier, with adults there's issues around gambling, cybercrime, people falling victim to scams and cons. So it really kind of highlighted that we needed to look at what we were actually delivering in the learning centres. So the staff had some ideas for updating and refreshing the digital learning that we offered in the centres. The staff themselves had to undergo a huge learning curve because some of our learning went online. So we were able to deliver literacies and ESOL groups online, and our family learning pizza reading groups, they went online as well, which was an entertaining afternoon when they were running. Our staff went on the digital ambassador training that Diane had been talking about. Some of our staff have been trained on that. We were having to look at new ways of working. We were wrestling with video platforms and social media, and for some of our staff, that was brand new learning as well. So it was interesting times. But what has changed now that we've had that breathing space and time to reflect and look back is that we have invested in new laptops and tablets for the learning centres. So that's more reflective of what people actually use at home. We're going to have smaller groups, and it'll be, which is much more in line with our non-formal learning approaches anyway. So we're going to have much more relaxed atmosphere rather than the big banks of desktop PCs that we used to have. People will be able to use things similar to what they have in their houses. We've got some Promethean boards that will support our learning sessions. and our blended learning sessions. I'm not going to say too much about them because I don't know how they work. And the learning itself will start to reflect much more appropriately what people need so that they can join in and take part digitally as digital citizens. So our IT groups, you're looking more at social media, internet safety, scams and cons that are out there, all the kind of basic things. How do people contact organisations online, which I think is still reflective. I know that the housing department have been trialling that, so we're wanting to help people use the technology that the council's bringing in as well. We're keeping some of our blended learning practices, so we will keep an element of our literacy sessions and our ESOL sessions online, because we found that for some people that works better. A bit like ourselves talking about the meetings that we have here on Digiren. It's the same for learners. Some people prefer face-to-face, and a lot of people have really missed the social interaction and the getting in contact with other folk. And other people really like being online. They find it much more convenient. They find it much easier to participate. It's all down to individual choices. What's still to come for the future for adult learning? There will be, hopefully, in the future, not too far away, lots more public access Wi-Fi. So if Diane's there, if we can have some support for you as we wave our flag for including the learning centres in that rollout programme. Also, we're going to be looking at Near Me, which is the platform I think that housing are using for having interviews and consultations with the housing officers. So we thought that would be a good programme for us to have a look at, so we can maybe take people through the process. So fingers crossed that will happen. And just generally, we're hoping that people will be much more comfortable using the digital side of things. So that's what adult learning are doing. I'm going to escape from this. You can see I'm a great one for coming along to it. I have no idea what I'm pressing here. So I'm just clicking buttons on my screen. And I'm going to hand you over to Fiona, and she'll tell you what's been happening for the youth side of things.
I was going to say just keep sharing, it would save me the
do you want me to bring it back up?
Yeah, go on.
It could take me a while.
So youth services, just while Claire's bringing it back up, we've been working with Diane for a number of years, been aware of our digital development and interest in engaging young people in creative technologies. Part of our job is about opening up access for young people to use digital tools safely, confidently, but also kind of realising that a lot of those skills are transferable in a learning setting, but also in a social setting. So our partnership with Young Scot has actually been really useful for us as a national youth agency. They have a portal which we can put content on, and part of our programmes we get young people to create that content, be it within their youth voice groups or campaigns. And it's been really quite interesting that during lockdown, although we did have iPads and we had a number of digital projects that had been running anyway, our face-to-face youth work went online. Now, the difficulty around that was, as Carol knows, because we were in touch with her about finding a safe platform that was accessible. Not all young people can use Teams, so the difficulty for us is to try and get young people on and still applying safeguarding and safety online measures to make sure that we're engaging with them in appropriate ways. So our kind of skills development has been around that safety aspect, finding ways that we can engage in creative ways, but also looking at future-proofing our staff and bringing them up to date with some of the skills. Claire had mentioned a number of programmes, but we we've done so much online training. It's been amazing. I don't know about you guys, but we've had national organisations like Youth Scotland, YouthLink that have provided incredible introduction to digital tools, and it might be something, Diane, that would be useful to have a bank of resources, stuff that's available online, and maybe have a directory so that if we've got new volunteers coming on and they're working in different fields, that there might be, you know, here's a handy link to this course that you can do. Those kind of resources might be helpful. So I've got a couple of examples up on the screen there. Our Young Scot portal, happy to drop that into the link as well, Diane and Ross, for everyone to see. The Young Scot portal is not just for youth services, it's for third sector, it's for anybody that works with young people. It can hold information on how to get signposting young people to information. So our digital development is a right-based approach, and it links to the digital rights that we have as a national campaign. Could you click on to the next slide, Claire? Thanks. So here's a couple of examples that we're working with young people just now as part of our Youth Work Education Recovery Fund. Alan, we know that there's an adult learning recovery fund that came through just recently. So we had been working during lockdown on education recovery and using some youth work techniques. So we had 4 academies. One was Outdoor Academy, Community Empowerment Academy, Cultural Academy, and we also had the Digital Academy, and that was delivered in partnership with the YMCA in Paisley, and looking at some of those practical examples and projects where we could involve STEM, get young people involved in creating content and projects. I can certainly share that at some point in the future. We've got a case study on that. We've also got a partnership project with Renfrewshire Leisure, or as they're called, One Ren. Art Boss was a project for care experienced young people. It also involves some young carers too, and it's where young people can engage using digital skills but also other cultural and arts tools to engage others. And one of the exciting projects they did was working on a Paisley's music tour. So if you scan that little code and with your phone, you can walk around Paisley, listen to music that was created in Paisley. So these are some of the creative projects I think are really exciting, because it's mixing the youth work approach that we have with some of the digital skills development that we can promote. We've also got a new project with the Promise, and hopefully involving the Promise champions and being able to tap into digital engagement with those that are not hard to reach, but they're on the margins and maybe don't want to come into buildings and projects, but there's a way of engaging them online as well. Next and final slide, I think, or second one. We use digital tools to promote democracy. So just a couple of examples that we have using the Young Scot portal was using the online voting platform to help carry out participatory budgeting with the Celebrating Renfrewshire Fund. We also hold the Scottish Youth Parliament elections online. We often have surveys that we put out to young people. So, for example, we've got the COP26. It's looking at the national priorities for that thematic group. And we've also got the Togetherall, which is the mental health and wellbeing online platform for young people that offer them support 24/7. So those are just some of the examples that we use in youth work. And the final slide is it's got a link to the Near Me. So I've put these digital links in that if anybody wants to click into and they want to find out a wee bit more. The Near Me is an NHS safe platform. You don't need any software like Teams. It's you can basically send someone a link and you can have that video call. So we're seeing this as a safe way of being able to engage young people if you need to do a quick catch up, and as Claire said, maybe just checking in some adults and families instead of having to drag themselves into a service office. If that's not appropriate because they've got the kids with them or it's at a certain time, then it's going to make it a wee bit more flexible. But we are still in that kind of thinking, Ross, where you had that Mentimeter about, you know, do people want to meet in person? And I think what we're finding is there has been some digital apathy recently. You know, the appetite for online is reducing, and I think people want to get back into the outdoors. They want to get into connecting with people, but we can use those digital tools in different settings. It doesn't have to be just online. We can still use those digital skills in our community settings. So that's all I wanted to say. That's me finished.
Fiona, thanks very much. And Claire, of course, thank you very much indeed. A great overview there in terms of some of the work that's been happening in both adult and youth services over the last few while. I think the refresh in equipment, Claire, is quite exciting and is obviously taking the learning for adults in a slightly different direction, much more reflective probably of their own world sort of needs, you know, in terms of smartphones and tablets, etc., etc. And I know the great work, obviously, led by SCBO has really helped in terms of access, lots and lots of laptop, lots and lots of particularly tablets and stuff going into local community settings, which has been really, really valued, I think, over the last 2 years. Has anybody got any questions for Fiona or for Claire? I would just say that obviously I think it was mentioned there's an adult learning recovery fund. There's been some excellent work taking place from third sector organisations, and there's been a lot of investment made to particularly Claire's area work in relation to some of the digital technology into the local learning centres, which is great. Diane obviously has been working with Gary Ennis in terms of adult learning bits and pieces around carers who are looking for bits of work, which kind of morphed into sort of supporting some workers from Renfrewshire as well, didn't it, Diane? Which, sorry, let's say, yeah, and it's been quite successful, quite good.
Yeah, really well, pretty well attended considering it was a short turnaround. So looking at Zoom skills and Microsoft Teams skills.
As always, we're recording this. I'll be very careful what I'm saying as always, but Scottish Government asked us to spend it quite quickly. So it was always a challenge, but always great to receive those kind of resources as well, which is excellent. So I appreciate both Claire and Fiona's input there. If nobody's got any questions, we're just about sort of 7 minutes before the normal finishing time, but we do have a spot here if there's anything anybody wants to raise, anything that's a sort of, a hot topic or a query or a question. Diane and Ross are listening. You know, I just tune out at this bit. I'm only kidding. If there's anything that you want to sort of raise and we can record as part of this, particularly maybe even for the next meeting, I don't think the hybrid thing's going to go away, that's for sure. And I'd be quite keen actually to hear about some of the cool things that Bernadette's up to. She's not spoke today, but she's been on the chat the whole time. So if Bernadette's got cool things she would like to bring, I really want the public Wi-Fi in Renfrewshire to be looked at. She's just said in the chat. Apologies, my internet's poor. All right. Well, we'll need to get it sorted for you then, so you can participate better, hybrid or no. All right. You could come here. You could share the one laptop. There you go. There's an offer for you. Right.
You know, I'm actually at Ferguson this afternoon, Alan, so I might see you if you're floating around.
Right. Okay. Do that. Right. Excellent. Is anybody anything they want to raise at this point? Diane, Ross, yourselves?
Yeah, just really briefly, just to say, I think I mentioned earlier in the updates, our service, the Sheltered Housing, won a COSLA award. We got an award for, it was our Achieving Better Outcomes in Partnership for our project We're Safe and Well. So it was actually just to say to this group, a lot of that part of that project was digital work. And obviously we were working in partnership with people in this group as well. So I just want to say thank you to all the people here as well that did help me. Even just coming along, sharing your views and things helps us create our service as well. And specifically things like Connecting Scotland against our project in Vore. In particular, Cassie had shared a booklet, I think, with Diane that got back to us for iPad use and things. So all that was through this group. So thank you to the group for helping us with that as well.
Brilliant. And it's a fantastic bit of work and really good for it. And I should have introduced him as award-winning Ross McNichol, of course. I forgot. Apologies. Diane, from your perspective.
Great, no thanks. It's great to hear that, Ross, because I think it's so important for us. We've been running Digiren for about 6 years now, Alan. I think back to that time when I says, do you fancy getting involved? You said, I'll help out a wee bit. And then 6 years on. But it's just, I think it's really important for us to have this space to talk. and to share ideas and to make connections. There's been loads of connections made today, and that's the power of Digiren, and well done, Ross and your team. And the presentations have been fantastic today. I mean, my mind is just blowing. There's so many opportunities. So try and from today make the connections with people. Keep in touch. If you need someone's contact details, let us know, and we'll put you in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending today. I think it's been really valuable. If it's okay, Diane and Ross, the three of us will stay on for a moment and discuss the things that we want to circulate to you, particularly the stuff relation to Carol's work, which I think at this moment in time, it couldn't be more important. Bernadette says that all her games machines have been getting attacked. That's right, Bernadette, isn't it? Yes. Maybe.
Yeah, any server that I've been running over the past few years, the past couple of weeks have been unprecedented in the stability of different services, so many DDoS attacks, different attempts. I can only imagine what it's like working in the council's network security department just now, because there's a lot of valuable data there that they have to protect.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just World of Warcraft accounts, which it is with you, isn't it? I mean, it's slightly.
I mean, like, you know, I play more than one game, you know.
That's all. Okay, I'll speak to you in Ferguson. Right, take care. Right, anyway, so we'll bring the meeting to the end. As I say, Ross and Diane will stay on at the end and we'll get a quick chat. But appreciated, folks. We'll send out, obviously, our next meeting date soon. We don't do these too regular, but I think today's been really worthwhile and really useful for everybody. So hopefully that was a good session. Thanks a lot. Appreciated. Take care of yourselves and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Damien.